The whole reason why this all come about is, first of all, my vines were very lad culture based. Some of them were considered to incite sexual violence. But the thing is, with social media and viral content, no one wants to watch something that's boring, right? So the more controversial it is, the more views it gets, the more followers you get, the bigger platform, the better brand deals, the more money you make, right? But now that I've got two daughters, I do look back on it and I do think, well, if that did influence any lads in the wrong way, that's embarrassing for me. I don't like that.
Is there anything that you look back on and you outright completely regret?
Yeah, apologising about it on Newsnight. I think I was right to be reprimanded or to be told, but I wish I never quit, because I apologise and I quit.
Dan O'Reilly, aka Mr. Dapper Laughs. Dapper Laughs was cancelled a few years ago because of some of his controversial jokes. We speak all things comedy. We speak about the business behind what he does, him being a social media influencer, and his rise back to stardom. I hope you enjoy it. Be happy, never content, and make sure you subscribe. Welcome back to the podcast, the Stephen Sully Study, here at my second home, Woodbury House in Heart of Mayfair, and I've got a wicked guest in front of me today. Mate, thank you very for your time. I'm looking forward to this episode, and I want to introduce Dapper Laughs, aka Daniel O'Reilly. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to your content for a long time, but as I said off air, there's actually the face value that you get from a person, but then when you start to research them, you actually find a different side, and you're actually really motivational.
Yeah.
I think people would put you initially into a bracket of being a comedian, but you're more than that. You're a go-getter, you're entrepreneurial, you're a mover and shaker. So my first question to you is, being from Kingston, I believe,
yeah.
and being 37, 38?
38, yeah.
38 years of age.
Yeah.
Have you always had this kind of go-getter entrepreneurial kind of gene, or is it something you sort of harnessed over the years?
Yeah, I think I come from a broken home. So my mum and dad split up when I was very young and had quite a turbulent divorce. I was one of those kids that had two Christmases and didn't see my father. I only saw my father every 2 weeks. Had two families, so to speak, and then my parents. My mum moved away when I was 15. I actually moved out when I was 15, and I got a character called Kid Frankie that sells sweets and stuff like that, and he's a bit of a gangster, and that's what I was like as a kid. Not gangster, but that's what I was like as a kid. I was wheeling and dealing and selling sweets and whatever I could to make money. And I've had many different jobs since I was about 15. And I got into sales, estate agency, that sort of thing. But I always wanted to be a comedian and performer. I'd done performing arts and drama and stuff like that. And I went away as soon as I could to Cyprus and learnt a trade of live performing, stand-up comedy in the hotel sort of industry. And come back and started my own business when I was quite young. When I was about 20, I started a business and then sold it. And then when I was about 24, I started another business, an estate agency, a letting agency. Sold my stake in that when I became Dapper Laughs. So I was business before I was comedy. I was business while I was trying to do comedy.
Do you know what's really interesting? I'm actually glad you said that you were in sales, because I believe that everybody in this room, everyone in the world, no matter how old or young you are, your gender, your race, your beliefs, we're all salespeople. Yeah. Some people trying to sell products or services or systems, but other people just trying to convey a message to their kids, to their loved ones, to their friends and family, and that's what makes you a salesperson. I think if you can learn sales from a very, very young age, that's a transferable skill to be a comedian, to be in the property game, even a podcaster. What did you learn from the art of selling? I
think the main thing that I learned from sales is to always have a unique selling point of whatever you're pitching. Do you know what I mean? You've got to create the need for something before you've got to create the need for your product in your mind and focus on what that need is within the customer. Do you know what I mean? So if, for instance, I'm selling now a stand-up comedy show that I'm doing, I like to create that urgency and that need first. So I'll get my followers or the fans, so to speak, to sign up and tell them they need to buy they need to buy on the day the tickets go out to save them losing. Instead of just putting them out and saying, look, they're on sale, build up that urgency. I think that's the main thing from sales, as well as identifying the type of people that you're trying to target, your audience. The same with comedy. with all my businesses, I've got a variety of businesses. I got products, I've got online brands, I've got platforms. So, I've got like adult industry platforms. I've got a film production company that produces movies. I've got different brands that I sell through my social media. And then I've got my live stand-up work. And everything is aimed at a certain demographic within my following. Do you know what I mean? But they're all sort of products that are for my demographic. So when I'm selling each of them, you work out who it's going to first, and then you focus your narrative on that.
You mentioned adult platforms. Can I make a note of it so I know what to avoid?
Well, listen, my main audience, I mean, it's very different now as I'm a family man I've got 2 kids, but my main audience was lads. It's lad banter. It got me in a lot of trouble back in the day, but my gap in the market in regards to comedy very much so was lad orientated humour, naughty humour, non-PC stuff that was close to the line, and through that my audience was lad based. So naturally my mind turned towards all the different things that men consume. So I've had a beer brand, Laughs beer. It's a barrel, and we sold it through lockdown. It was a barrel of laughs. Fucking content was endless on that, and sold 10, 15, about 14,000 barrels, something like that. Turned over a lot of money on that. I've done stuff with betting, with the sex industry. Anything that I feel my followers would consume well, but also that I can do well,
So you got a massive following online, especially on Instagram. I know you've been on Big Brother. There's been some really good reports and let's say controversial reports. You've been on the BBC, etc. Before we get into all that, because some people say, oh yeah, it's easy for them to say something because they're in a position of power or they've made money or they're this successful person. But in actual fact, some viewers won't realise this, but you were doing the rounds when you were younger. On stand-up, you was at Butlins, you was on, cruise ships, obviously working on there. So tell me a bit more about that, them days when you was more hustling. Yeah,
so I always had, from I think when my mum moved away when I was 15, I learned the value of money very quickly. If I wanted nice things and if I wanted to eat well, and if I wanted a nice place to rent or to stay, and if I wanted money, do you know what I mean? I learned the value of that, but I had a problem where I was extremely passionate about performing, acting. Actually, I'd done a lot of work, on my acting ability when I was very young. I went to performing arts college, and then when my mum moved away, I was sort of stuck, acting. I was auditioning and trying to get roles in, I auditioned for EastEnders, Grange Hill. So a lot of people won't know what that is, but that was back in the day. Loads of stuff.
I know what that is.
Yeah. Commercials and stuff like that. And I wasn't getting anything as an actor. And I needed to feel that sort of, that creative side of me to perform. I wanted to perform in front of live audiences. I loved musical theatre. So stand-up was an instant way for me to get money and perform and to create. So yeah, I'd done hundreds and hundreds of open mic gigs. My first open mic gig, I think I was too young to even be in there. I think I was about 16 in a pub. And straight away I was addicted to it. Do you know what I mean? Had a natural ability to be able to think on my feet and make people laugh, but also not be scared. Do you know what I mean? That's the main thing with stand-up. I think everyone's naturally scared a little bit, but I didn't give a fuck. I thought, if you laugh, you laugh. If you don't, I won't do that again, And I kind of didn't really give a shit about dying on my arse. And I think that's the only way you become a successful comedian is you got to die until stuff starts working. And I think that's the only difference between a successful comedian and a non-successful comedian. Bar natural ability is probably just who can take a kick in the bollocks for long enough to learn the trade. Do you know what I mean? So I was doing that back in the UK. And then I just wanted to get away. I was fed up of paying rent, so I wanted to get away. And I went over to Cyprus, and they put you up in a hotel. I was doing game shows and everything, and learnt my trades, learnt how to do stand-up in front of bigger live audiences before and after the game shows I was doing. So I just do 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Then I got spotted doing that, and spent a good few years traveling the world on cruise ships as a professional stand-up comedian.
Yeah, excellent stuff.
Yeah, flying on and off like the Royal Caribbean ships. So then I was like, it was professional. I was getting paid good money at a young age. I was I think I was the youngest person on the Royal Caribbean cruise ships, flying on and off. And then I wanted to come back home. I was still young, and I wanted to, enjoy Clapham. That's where I moved to, Clapham, and just out with my mates chasing birds, getting smashed and making money. So, but then I was left with this hunger. I mean, I had my estate agency, and then along came social media, and suddenly I could sit in the office and work as well as create comedy. And once the followers started coming, that was me gone.
Yeah. We spoke off air, and we're definitely going to speak about it probably a little bit later on, or even a little bit now, about boxing. And you mentioned about being a comedian. It's almost like the don't give a fuck attitude. And I completely understand it, not from being a comedian point of view, but actually boxing.
Yeah.
You get in there and you feel like you're going to win, but you don't actually know whether you're going to win that fight or not. You could actually come out of there on a stretcher. Even worse still, some people can even get killed. Yeah. But you have to have that don't give a fuck mentality in order to persevere. How much similar traits has there been from what you do when you stand up, do comedy, and also the boxing arena?
Fighting for me is something that I love fighting. I used to, I think like everyone to a certain extent, used to get bullied a little bit at school, but I was a really mouthy. Do you know what I mean? I didn't give a fuck. My dad used to, I mean, he must have known that I was going to be a twat when I was older, because my dad used to say to me, look, if you're going to get beaten up, if someone's, try and protect yourself, but if you're going to get beaten up, if you're outnumbered and someone's going to chin you, then, make their mates laugh. So every time they tell the story that they hit you, their mates would be like, yeah, but did you hear what he said? Do you know what I mean? And I used to do that. If I knew I was going to get my head kicked in, I'd make sure I got some fucking good gags out, some funny shit. And but through that, I got sort of fed up of getting sparked out all the time. So I started doing a bit of boxing and that when I was younger. And I found it's very similar in my work life. With stand-up, like for instance, if I was to do like the Troxy, I'd done the Troxy a little while ago, no promoters would work with me. This was when I was still a little bit toxic from the TV stuff and getting thrown off TV. A lot of the promoters and stuff wouldn't work with me, so I couldn't get a tour. I couldn't get these big these sort of like big venues and stuff like that unless I put the money down at myself. I mean, 20 grand, 25 grand to rent a venue. And after I hadn't been doing it for a long time, it was scary to me to put that money down and see if my followers wanted to still do it. Very much like boxing and stand-up comedy and business, my attitude has always been, if I fucking do it and commit to it and say I'm going to do it, then I'm going to have to make it happen. And it's the same with, so I'd just book the venue and then I'll be like, right, now the work begins. I've got to sell it. I've got to do it. I've got to write the material. I wouldn't, and the same with boxing. I've done MMA as well, and I fought Harvey from So Solid Crew. And the reason I've done that is because I got offered it, and my first thought was fucking cage fighting. Fuck that. No way would I do that. No way would I do it. So I thought, that's why I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to say yes, because imagine if I'd done a cage fight. And I look back on it, I'm like, even if I lost, which I did, but I look back on it, I'm like, fuck, that was you in the cage, man. I'm always going to have that picture on my wall, right? And I visualised having that picture and telling that story that I fought in the cage against Harvey from So Solid Crew in front of fucking 10,000 people up in Newcastle. I visualised that and I thought, all right, say yes, and just said yes. And then next thing I had to make it happen. And it's the same with boxing. Every Saturday I spar, every Saturday morning, every Saturday I get in there, and when I'm about to spar, I think, oh man, this ain't right. What am I doing? And then I say, no, that's why you got to do it. And now with boxing, I kind of feel like I like it. I like the sparring. I like that element of fear. I like getting hit. I like getting, and I like coming out thinking I just done something on a Saturday morning when everyone else is fucked. Do you know what I mean?
So what I liked about when you said when you were younger, you were getting basically beaten up, but you were spinning it in a way where you can get some comedy value out of it and actually kind of slightly enjoy the process because you were getting something from it. The reason why I mention this is because listening to other interviews that you've done, you have said once or twice that in comedy, when you was on stand-up and you were saying things which were, let's say, close to the line, maybe over the line, you were attacked and actually, I think, knocked out a couple of times. Can you walk me through one of those experiences?
I mean, stand-up comedy is a crazy thing, especially when you're learning it and depending on where you're learning it. So if you're going around, say, the London comedy circuit and you're doing open mic nights in wine bars or comedy clubs and stuff like that, it's very different to when you work abroad and do it. So when you're doing it, it's quite a safe environment in London. It's quite safe. And when you're over in Cyprus and you're doing all-inclusive hotels full of Northerners and you're from London, it's a different ball game. And you're sort of imposing entertainment on people that don't really want it sometimes. And when I was over there, it was very hard for me to control pissed up crowds. I was young. I was very young, like 20, 21, 22. No, younger than that, I think. 20 maybe. And one time I went on stage and I got heckled hard as soon as I went on, and I just come off. I just stopped my show and come off. And one of the older comedians that was on the circuit said to me, look, listen, if you're getting heckled, you got to fight them, not like physically, but verbally. You got to fight them. You got to take them on. And he gave me some advice, and he said that if a man is heckling you and he's with his woman, if the woman will tell the man, normally a man will we're all a bit scared of our missus. Normally if, your missus says, shut up, that's enough. Normally you give in. So I have a go at the missus, and then she'll say, fucking leave it. And I took that a bit far one time. I was on stage and I come on, and this guy I just said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my comedy. And someone just said straight away, you're shit, get off. That was the first thing he said. I'd only said what he said, you're shit, get off. And I was like, yeah, that's what your fucking mum said last night, or something like that, something stupid. And he was like, you what? And I said, sorry, mate, is this your wife that you're with? And I'll never forget it, actually. He was a big old lump. He was stood right there, and he was about 2 rows back, and he was shouting. And I said, who's that you're with? Is that your wife? And he said, yeah, that's my wife. And I said, well, is that your first wife? And he goes, no, that's my second wife. Why? And I said, well, she wouldn't have been my first choice either, the fat cunt. And that was it. He was, you might have to beep out the cunt. And that was it. He was up and bang, but the whole audience were laughing, and bang, he's sparked me clean out. Yeah, I've had a couple of them. I've had a couple of them, yeah.
Well, listen, if you don't die, you definitely learn from those experiences.
Yeah, mate. Good fun.
Yeah, for sure. Look, you spoke about this in loads of different podcasts. I'll try and make mine a little bit different, but I do want to ask you about going through the adversity, but then also that winner's mindset that you have got, which is clear as day, how you got through it. 2014 seemed like a bit of a rocky...
Yeah, the worst time of my life. Yeah,
really rocky time for you. Not just commercially, but also in your private life. So I got here, 2014, ITV2, your TV show Dapper Laughs. There was obviously a gag or a joke made to a live audience about gagging for a rape, inverted commas, and then 68,210 people signed a petition to end the series. Look, I'm the type of individual that anything can be funny, because I understand that in this arena it's a joke. It's a bit like boxing again. I know I will fight anybody, from a proper, professional right down to an amateur, and I know whether they hurt me, I hurt them, or it's very close. I know it's not personal. I just know it's boxing, where it's a sport. It's a bit of a game sometimes in there. Then at the end of it, you shake each other's hand, and then you go back. And if you saw them in the pub or in the street, we'd never start on them, because it's boxing. And it's the same thing with comedy. Whatever happens in that arena should stay in that arena. You should never take it personally. But unfortunately, there are many people in this life who will take things personally. So starting with that, then, what was your kind of response, or how did you feel emotionally when it happened?
The problem that we've got with comedy at the moment, and being a comedian, or just being on TV or famous or in social media, is that you're at the mercy of journalism. You're at the mercy of clickbait social media, and you're at the mercy of everyone out there that wants to make a name for himself. And there's a thousand things that cause offense to people now. Or no, there's 1,000 things out there that people can be offended by. There's even more causes that people want to promote. So it makes them look good, virtual signaling and stuff like that. And if you're a new up and coming young comedian that hasn't got very much experience, it's a fucking minefield. And listen, I built my career and I built my life on seeing where the line is and coming up close to it. And listen, when you're young and naive, you say stupid things. That's how we learn, man. Every single person on this planet has got stuff that they're embarrassed about that they done or said when they were younger. I'm no different. But when you've got a whole industry amplifying what you say for their own reason and their own motives, and it can get out of hand real quick. Mob culture is rife, especially on Twitter. And some of the stuff I said was stupid. Some of it was taken out of context. It's very difficult to accept what happened to me as fair game when I didn't receive one complaint from anyone in the audience, because they saw the whole show. They saw the context of what I was saying. But then again, you got to hold your hands up sometimes and say, look, you say stupid things, you get a reaction. But to lose everything you work for over a joke, I think is it's a bit difficult, really. It's difficult for me to look back. It caused me a lot of emotional pain. Do you know what I mean? And it was a very dark thing to go through, a very dark, embarrassing thing to lose everything so publicly.
You mentioned about certain things were taken out of context. If I can ask,
so the whole point, the whole reason why this all come about is, first of all, my vines were very lad culture based. Some of them were considered to incite sexual violence because I do sketches, silly sketches with girls, women, so to speak. And at the time, there was a lot of backlash on it, because I do jokes. So one of them was, there's a woman walking down the street, and I said, "Excuse me, can I smell your fanny?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, it must be your fucking feet then." It's a joke, right? That's an actress, someone that's involved in my sketch, but and the character, the thing is with social media and viral content, no one wants to watch something that's boring, right? So the more controversial it is, the more views it gets, the more followers you get, the bigger platform, the better brand deals, the more money you make, right? So it's all well and good for journalists and other people to sit out there and go, well, it's, you're putting the wrong thing across to your followers and stuff like that. Well, majority of people know that that's not how I behave, that it's a comedy sketch. But now that I've got 2 daughters, I do look back on it and I do think, well, if that did influence any lads in the wrong way, that's embarrassing for me. I don't like that. It makes me feel bad, but it's just such a thin, fine line to walk on. And the only way you can find your way through that is through experience of getting it wrong, right? Like anything in life. And I was on stage, a big piece had come out in The Guardian saying that my TV show was an almanac for rape culture, saying that I was teaching men to rape. That's the Dapper Laughs' new show, Almanac for Rape. My family's being affected by sexual violence. So to insinuate that about me and what I was doing pissed me off, like made me fucking angry, saying that because I was taking men and sort of, giving them a makeover and teaching them how to chat up birds on ITV2, that I was teaching men how to rape. For me, it was such a big jump, and I was a bit naive in regards to what they meant, and I was pissed off, and I went up on stage. I was drunk as well, and I went up on stage. I'd had a couple of beers. I was annoyed, and I just simply said, if I wanted to make a TV show that was teaching men how to rape, I wouldn't have spent the last 10 years, working the comedy circuit. I wouldn't have spent fucking the last 2 years writing fucking 6 30-minute episodes for a TV show. I just would have done one 1-minute episode and said, go down the road, get some duct tape, tie a bird up and rape her. I wouldn't have put all of that effort into everything else. And as I said that, a woman down at the front, because they're all my supporters, I used to have a lot of women at the front, a woman down the front said, my friend Lucy or whatever, she loves you, she's gagging for a rape. And I went, what's that? She's gagging for a rape? And everyone laughed. And they cut and edited it on when they played it out on TV, and when it done the rounds, because I'd already been arguing with lots of journalists. So when they had this, it just syndicated through every online publication, and it just had me coming out going, if you want to rape someone, go down the road, get some duct tape, tie them up and rape them, and then cut to me going, she's gagging for a rape. And that was it. No context of it. I mean, looking back, I shouldn't have been speaking about those things anyway. But saying that, you've got Jimmy Carr now that just opened his latest Netflix special with free rape jokes and, all comedic. But as you can tell, it fucking winds me up still. And then, millions of views and loads of signatures later, and articles coming up. Pro rape comedian wants to do a gig here. Pro rape comedian, that's what they labelled me as. Then after that, pro rape comedian, which for me and my family and everyone was tough. But and then what about all the victims that have been victims of this? I had to deal with all the articles. All these people, the joke's upset, but none of them people would have heard the joke if the press hadn't fucking blown it out of proportion and take it out of context. So I know it doesn't seem like it. I'm past it now. I learned a lot from it. Having 2 daughters, I can understand how a lot of my material back then was off key, but I had to learn. Unfortunately, I fucking learned the hard way. It devastated my mental health, and I lost everything. My father died around the same sort of time, became an addict. So I'm sober now. I've been up and down with drink and drugs for a long time throughout my life, and I hit it hard then. Became suicidal, but best thing that ever happened to me. Because just to put context in, because that probably sounds bad. The only reason I say best thing that ever happened to me is because it just made me appreciate all the normal things and everything else in life. You have to lose everything first, I think, to really appreciate life. And I think from all of that, it just gave me that ability to stop, to think, fuck me, man. You know, I've been at the darkest point. The only way is up now, so it's been good since.
Yeah, look, I listen.
When I start talking, so my ADHD, I'm like that. Sorry, go on.
I've got ADHD as well. I listen to a lot of motivational podcasts, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, etc. And I listen to, and the interview I'm about to share with you went viral with Steve Jobs, who sadly got cancer, was told he was going to die, but then overcame this rare form of cancer and then done a talk at this university that he used to be a part of. And he was saying that it was only in the face of death did he actually realise that nothing else really mattered apart from the time you've got on this earth right now. Yeah. And going through what you went through, if we put a silver lining around it, that's exactly it. Just to round this segment off then, obviously there are things that are taken out of context. Is there anything that you look back on and you outright completely regret saying or doing?
Yeah, apologising about it on Newsnight. I wish I never went on Newsnight and apologised. I wish I never went on and grovelled. I wish I never let it emotionally destroy me. I think that I think you should only really apologise for something if you meant any malice behind it, and I never meant any malice behind it. You know, I think I was right to be reprimanded or to be told. You know what I mean? Like, some of the stuff you're saying is offensive. You know. But I wish I never quit, because I apologise and I quit back then. And maybe I do regret some of the vines, some of the old close to the mark stuff. Well, I don't know, regret's a strong word. Maybe I'll be embarrassed by it, but I wouldn't have the knowledge about sexism. I wouldn't have the knowledge about what women have got to go through. I wouldn't have the knowledge about how lad culture can be toxic. I wouldn't have the knowledge about sexual harassment or anything like that unless I'd been through it. So, and now I've got 2 girls to pass it on to. So, regret's a strong word. Maybe I'm embarrassed by some of it, but I don't regret anything that's made me the person I am today, because I'm proud of myself.
Mate, you've completely smashed it, and the way you've come back is very, very motivational. Just going to touch on something that you said. The Mirror this year, 25th of March 2022, said that Dapper Laughs considered taking his own life after losing a career at an all-time height of fame. Then there was a snippet I've just read here. It said, "I lost everything, my career, my house, my savings. I ended up living in my girlfriend's parents' spare room." I know some people say, "Oh, I want to kill myself," or "I'm starving," and people over exaggerate when they feel certain emotions. I mean, I've done it earlier. I haven't eaten since my training session. I was like, "I'm starving." I'm not starving, am I? I'm just hungry. I really want to ask you, did you honestly feel like you could have killed yourself back then?
Yeah, so I'll talk you through it. It wasn't like a passing thought, you know, "Oh, this is really bad, I want to kill myself." To me, it was a scenario, it was a situation. I'd become pretty low after losing everything. You know, my ego was at an all-time high when I was Dapper Laughs, and I had Dapper Laughs on the pool. You know, all of a sudden I had a TV show, I was doing personal appearances, I had loads of money, and then very quickly I lost my money, my source of income. I didn't have any backup. That's why I think I've got so many different businesses now. It's because I'm terrified that something will go wrong again. So there's positives that come out of it, but I didn't have any backup, any other form of revenue stream apart from everything I put into Dapper Laughs. And my missus said she was pregnant like a couple of days after my father died, and I just couldn't handle it, and I could feel myself on the way out. So, you know, I regret this now. Back then, but selfishly, I I had nowhere to go. I'd lost everything, and we had to drive all the way up I had a pregnant missus and a fucking beagle in my fucking Audi TT. The only thing I had fucking left was this stupid sports car that I'd bought when I had some money, 2-seater, no space for nothing. And I was just so depressed in her spare room, in Tilsley in Manchester. I love her parents so much, and I put them through a lot of shit, her parents, and they've always stuck by me. I ended up breaking up with her and coming back down to London, moving in with the wrong type of person I should have. At the time I was heavy on the drugs, on coke. I was drinking every day and then session 2-3 times a week. And it was during one of these sessions I was on my own on a black bed at his house. And I just thought to myself, I was fucking high. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop sniffing the gear and that. And going over and over with your ADHD as well. It's going over and over everything that had happened and just crying and embarrassed and couldn't see a way out. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to fucking cut my wrist. But he had white carpet. I remember he had white carpet and thinking to myself, I don't want to fuck up his house. So I'll go for a walk. And it was in the middle of the night off me nut. And I went for a walk and I just thought, I'm just going to fucking try it, man. I'm going to try and call someone and talk to someone. But I didn't want to tell my mum. And I couldn't talk to Shelley because we'd broken up, and obviously being a lad I didn't want to talk to my mates, so I actually rang the Samaritans on my father. I rang the Samaritans and I spoke to a woman off me nut for about 45 minutes and come off the phone. And even though I continued using drugs and drinking, I'm only 40 days sober now. I relapsed again recently over Christmas and stuff. I'm always battling it. That was the beginning of my mental recovery. I thought, I just woke up. I was like, fuck me, mate, that was bad. It can't get much worse than that. And it was weird. It was like, right, I'm ready to, because every morning I wake up, I'm up at 4:30 in the fucking morning, mate, and I'm downstairs in front of my computer at 5. I do a little bit of work on my computer, write my to-do list, then 5:30 I'm in the car, and 6 o'clock I'm at the boxing gym. Every 6 days a week I'm there, right? And by the time I come out of the boxing gym at 7, I'm like, let's fucking go. What moves am I making? What am I doing? What have I got on today? How am I making money? What content am I making? What's going on with this film? What's next? And that spark came back. That next day. Spark came back. What's next? What moves am I making? What angles can I find? But I had to get there to get the spark back.
Yeah, listen, there's no... my brother, had a seizure when he was on cocaine. My uncle is now passed away. He was on heroin. And also,
I'm sorry, mate.
In the last year or so. Yeah, but when they've been on it for so long... And I had a lot of friends on there.
It becomes normality, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just like, it's part and parcel of living in London. Now. Yeah, very, very much so. There's one, I don't want to say a positive to say about doing drugs, but there is sometimes positivity that comes off the back end of it. There's a lot of creativity, I find, that people have been on drugs and then they focus at that kind of addiction, and then they become really creative at something, whether that's in business, whether that's being a comedian. I mean, even this guy here, this Richard Hambleton, he was on drugs for 35 years, on heroin, crack cocaine, everything else, and he's now the godfather of street art, and many of his predecessors the same, and they're selling for hundreds of millions of dollars some of their artwork.
Is he fucking hell? Yeah. All right, let's get on a sesh. No. But is he sober now, this guy?
He's died. Yeah, he died. But what I'm trying to say is, like, the creativity can come from when you're on it, and I feel that when you've got that addictive personality, if you can channel it into something, mate, you can become very, very, very successful.
I mean, 100%. That's like, I feel like I've got an addictive personality, and I feel like a lot of men, unfortunately, what they should teach men, or they should teach us, is a lot more about well-being and spirituality and being in focus with how we feel. I think as soon as I control my thoughts in the morning, as soon as I'm in control of how I'm thinking and what I'm doing, I become powerful. If my mind's going all over the place and I don't know what's going on, then I feel weak, and I'm definitely. I think we all are. We're all addicted. We're all addicts, all of us. You're either addicted to sex, or you're addicted to porn, or you're addicted to working, or you're addicted to the gym, positive things. And I think that, if you can focus as a human race, if you remember all the years all the years ago when we were fucking cavemen and we were running around, we were either getting chased by something or chasing something. We were either running from a fucking saber-toothed tiger or we were chasing after our dinner. Do you know what I mean? And our bodies are like that. You know, in order to feel motivated and to feel fresh, we have to be getting something. So whether you're getting your fix on drugs or you're getting in the gym or you're getting something or you're focused on business, you have to feel like you're going for something. Now, if you're not doing that in a positive way, then it makes you feel like shit. If you are doing that in a positive way, I think the world is your oyster and it makes you successful. And if you're not, then that's when depression and anxiety can set in. You're meant to be fucking doing something. Do you know what I mean? That's what I think. So if you can focus your natural addiction on positive things, you can be powerful.
I've had Alfie Best on my podcast and his son Alfie Best Jr. And when I interviewed Alfie Best Jr., he said, my dad always used to say this to me: the devil will make work of idle hands.
Yeah, man.
And what Alfie Best is a billionaire, very, very close to where, you know, was a gypsy, born on the side of the road, and now he's got a massive empire. And that always stays in my mind. Yeah. The moment you have idle hands and you're kind of a bit bored and you don't know what to do, you find yourself down the pub, drinking, around the wrong people, start abusing yourself on drugs, and before you know it, you're in some squat somewhere for 2 or 3 days and just doing some crazy stuff. On that note of your relapse, can I ask you a personal question? Yeah. What do you mean by the relapse, and what was it like?
Really, so it's difficult to use words like that because I don't really I didn't consider myself an addict, right? Because I'm not drug or alcohol dependent. I don't drink every day. I didn't drink every day and I didn't use cocaine every day. But it's something that I'm just coming to terms with now, that if you have habitual drug use, you know, if you're like me and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're productive, you're making fucking decent money, you're driving around in a flash car and you've got a nice house, or you're just fucking getting by, do you know what I mean? You're doing all right, but you like a session at the weekend, every weekend. That's a form of addiction. If you can't have a drink, if you can have a drink one night, maybe on a Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday you got the taste for it, and by Friday you're drinking and you're doing coke, or you can't get the free beers and not have a fucking packet. Do you know what I mean? You're an addict. I didn't think it, but you're an addict. Now, if you can do that and it doesn't affect your work and it doesn't affect your relationship with your wife or your kids, it doesn't affect your income, then more power to you. Crack on. I'm not here to judge. But for me, as soon as I hit the drink, maybe not that night, but days would come where the packet would be introduced, and then the next thing, I'm round with my missus. I'm mentally or verbally abusing the missus. I'm fucking neglecting my kids in the morning, you know what I mean? I'm just giving them the iPad when I should be taking them out on their bikes, and then I'm missing meetings, you know, and my annual turnover, you know, or my monthly, weekly, you know, my targets that I'm trying to hit and stuff like that, and I didn't give a fuck because I was either on a come down or I was high. I worked all of this out last year, worked it all out, after keep busting up with my missus, worked it all out, said, that's it, I'm a strong man, do you know what I mean? Once my mind's straight, I'm strong. And I said, I'll go sober, and that was it, bang, sober. 6 months, I got up to 6 months, and Christmas was on the horizon. I was getting married, my stag do was coming, certain people were in my ear, how are we going to do the stag do Marbella without a fucking drink, and how are you going to do Christmas? And I was like, do you know what? I've proved it to myself. I can do 6 months sober. I'll just go back to having a couple of beers. I'll be fine. A week later, I was back on the packet. The argument started, but I couldn't see it for fucking months. Do you know what I mean? I was like, look, fuck it, man. I've done 6 months sober. And I was just back to my old ways. Drove my missus to, you know, the edge, and it makes you selfish, you know. I was having meetings in town, you know, like if I was coming to this podcast now, I'd be like, well, I'll grab a beer on the way out and then see who else was in town. But I'll be coming out of this and I'll be going back in time to do the school run because my missus has started a new job and I want her to have her first week chilled. Do you know what I mean? You're more giving when you're sober. Well, I am anyway. So shit really had to hit the fan for me. I won't go into too much detail, but a big thing happened for me that made me think I'm going to lose, you know, the one thing that's most important to me, which is my family. And I was like, oh, never again, and went sober again. And I'm 40 days in, and I intend to stay like this forever.
Good man.
It's tough, but I feel fucking great, mate. I feel powerful when I'm like this. You know,
you can even tell in your conviction in your voice. I'm obviously following you on Instagram and seeing your posts and stuff, and your boxing. You're looking good. It's just a
better way of life, mate. It's just I don't want to preach and put it down people's, throats. But if alcohol and drugs is affecting your happiness, if it's affecting the way you are, then just this is what I keep saying to myself. Imagine what I can do if I'm just like, if my project now is my mind. If I'm like, how can I get the most out of my mind? Well, your body's got to be, you have to train your body to get your mind clear, didn't you? So imagine if I just done everything right, all my well-being stuff, and train my body, stayed away from drink, drugs, negative people. What's next year going to bring?
I know you mentioned about your dad,
Yeah.
and I obviously want to finish off this section about talking about that, but I believe your dad died of a stroke.
Yeah.
Was it was it expected or was it unexpected? How did, when he died, was it just out the blue?
Yeah, it was really out of the blue. I think when you lose a parent, it affects everyone. But for me, it was, I suffer with, I've got ADHD obviously, but also, I think I've never been diagnosed, but I think I've got personality disorders, where abandonment issues and stuff like that. Things can really, really affect me. And I think the paranoia from drug abuse and stuff like that. The fear of being on my own is a big thing, can cause a lot of self-destructive behaviour. If I think if I think it's not going to work with me and my missus, when I was high, I used to be like, well, fuck it then, and really fuck things up. And I had this fear with my father because my mum and dad broke up. As a lot of kids would understand this, when you don't see your dad for a long period of time, and then you can only see him on certain days, or it creates this need to see your father and be with your father. And once my relationship really blossomed with my dad and I became Dapper Laughs and had the TV show and stuff like that, he was like my biggest fan, and he's a massive comedy fan, and he was so proud of me. And when I went through all that turmoil of losing my TV show and everything, he really had a great attitude about it. He was like, who the fuck gave you a TV show anyway? They're fucking mental. He's like, we won. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you ain't lost the TV show. You ain't lost nothing. It's like, they're fucking them dickheads. You know what I mean? You're mental, like, you're crazy. He used to be like, mate, you're on another level to these people. Do you know what I mean? It's their fault. They should never have given you a TV show. You're fucking too out there for them. And he just used to have a positive spin on it. When my tour got cancelled and I got sued, he was like, give them the fucking money back. It's dirty money anyway. You'll make it again. He was really positive. He was like, you'll come back bigger and stronger, and this PC culture, fucking cancel culture can't last forever. Fuck them. He was always happy for me. Even in loss, he was happy for me. He was like, fucking brilliant, mate. 60,000 people sign a petition. 60,000 people know ya. I'm like, you fucking know that, So I'd have this brilliant brotherhood with my dad. And I'd just done the Newsnight interview, which he was really upset about, because I'd apologised. He's like, why are you fucking, like I'd given in. And then I just got a phone call one day. I hadn't responded to him on Facebook. He'd messaged me on Facebook about a video that we'd done together. I'd prank called him, and he'd messaged me saying it's fucking brilliant, or saying, I didn't reply. And then I got a message saying that he'd had a stroke, and he's in Guernsey, so I had to fly over to Guernsey. So I didn't think I was going to, they said it was bad. But when I flew over and got over there, he was awake and he weren't talking right. He was still cracking some funny jokes, He was saying, I've had a stroke. He said, you would have done the same thing if you'd seen the fucking nurses in here and all this. He was having a right laugh. When the doctor come in, he was like, this is what upset me a little bit. When the doctor come in, he said, when I die, you make sure you get my wallet out of my jacket, because I don't trust this fucker. And they was all laughing and that. And he went under and he never come back. And I had to make the decision whether to turn his machine off, unfortunately, because he started coning. They call it coning when you're something to do with your brainstem detaching from your head. So he's alive. If he had ever come round, he'd be the hell with a blink. That'd be in it. And they got us in a room and said, we want to turn off the machine because he's gone. Do you know what I mean? And he was such an entertainer. It was an easy choice for me. But my stepmom and my brother couldn't make the choice. Unfortunately, I've never really spoken to my brother since this. Which is tough. I don't know if it's because of this, but we haven't spoken for years. But I just said, look, what would you do, Doc, if it was your dad? And he said, I'd let him go. I said, well, let him go then. And it was, I don't know. I lost about a year, I think. I can't remember much. I was fucked for a year, drunk off me nut. No, I don't know, because maybe not. I wasn't right. I really was in a bad place for a year, but a day later, my missus said she was pregnant, and I feel like that was my dad's last sort of thing of going, look, fucking grow up, man. So I'm a proper dad now, but for the first 2 or 3 years maybe of my daughter's life, I was not quite right. But fuck me if you can survive that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, solid stuff, mate. Solid. So in 2014, you did retire the alias of Dapper Laughs, but then basically the back end of that year, you resurrected him, and you was about to do a tour in Glasgow in March 2015, and it also got cancelled.
Yeah.
That kind of to and fro.
It was killing me.
It was killing me over that time. Like how did you stay positive and motivated?
I didn't, man. I didn't. I wasn't positive. I was getting moments of motivation and trying to put work together, and then I was losing it when it was getting cancelled. But listen, I look at weeks like the last couple of weeks, and to think back then, I'd put a post up and it would be thousands of comments. Like, fuck off, go away, no one wants you, rape comedian, da-da-da. And I can remember thinking to myself, how long is this going to go on for? Where most people would have maybe thought, fuck it, I ain't doing it no more. But my mind, luckily at the time, was like, how long is this going to go on for? And maybe after a year and a half, there was some light in there. Yes, Dapper, I'll keep going. That was funny. And then like 2 years, it was maybe 20% positive. And now, if you look at my Instagram, every fucking single comment on there is positivity. Everything is funny, well done, you're inspiring me. And that is fucking what? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 5, 6, 8 fucking years of posting twice a day to get there. And this week, my film just, it was number 1 globally on Amazon. My latest film that I produced and star in. It's just gone onto Amazon Prime, featured. It's doing bits, doing numbers. I've filmed another film that's coming out at the beginning of next year. I've got another 8 on the slate that we've written, ready to go into production. No one would have even given me a fucking part back then. So I don't know. There was something in my head that was just like, we got no choice, man. This is what we do. So it was fucking mental, mate. I can't believe it looking back on it now. What the fuck? I was only having a laugh.
And your TV appearance on Big Brother 2018.
Yeah, that done me some favours, I think. Yeah.
Reading about it for me, it looks like it had, and it
there was obviously some. I said some stupid shit, but I'm gonna, man. I'm a knobhead.
But it gave you a chance to kind of say how you really felt and thought.
Yeah, I think this is the truth of it, right? The press and the journalists that didn't like me. I'm working class, first of all. I'm a lad. I was doing lad humour, but the press and the picture that they had painted of Dapper Laughs and of me was one very much that I was anti-women. Very similar to how they tried to paint Andrew Tate and stuff, right? That I was anti-women, that I hated women, that I was sexist, that I was promoting violence, and it was all very dark. Once I went on Big Brother, I think people just realised he's just a knob. He's just a bit of a twat. Do you know what I mean? He's saying the same stupid, dumb shit that my boyfriend says when he's had a couple of beers, or my brother, or my dad, or my granddad. You know what I mean? Or the lads down the pub do. We all say stupid, dumb stuff, but is there any malice behind it? Am I out promoting any negative things? No. And I think that's what Big Brother did. It gave me enough airtime for people to go, oh, he's actually all right. He's just a bit of a twat. So
like, how did the opportunity come up for Big Brother, and why did you take it?
I turned it down twice. I was broke, so it was hard to turn down. But when they first offered it to me, my father had just passed away, and I think they offered me about 20 grand or something like that. But I was broke, and luckily I had the right people around me to say, you're fucked, mate. You know what I mean? Because of the drugs, the drink, and my father passing away, there was like, you should not be on TV, just take a break from anything media-wise, do you know what I mean? Second time they offered it to me was a little bit more money, maybe 40 grand or something, but my daughter had just been born. I was in a bit of a better headspace, but I didn't want to leave her. And then it was a year of the woman that I'd done, so it was the year of the woman, celebrating women, and they wanted a villain, do you know what I mean? And I said, well, I'm ready to do it. What's the money? And they come back at 40 grand, and I said, double it, and I'm your fucking man. So then 80 grand, I was like, yep, let's go. So for the money, really, and I was in a better headspace, and that was the first bit of money that I got. And yeah, the rest is history, mate.
So I know you've spoken about this loads of times, but the whole cancel culture thing, you know, I'm quite a similar age to you, yeah? And I sort of remember life before social media. I remember life before Instagram, podcasts, etc. And I sometimes toy with the idea of, would life be better if we didn't have it, or is life better now? And I think the answer to it is, if you use social media in a positive way, like business and connecting with people, I think it's great. But then at the same time, it can become a bit of a poison if it's used in the wrong way. What I don't like is if you're not saying something which is agreeing with the general narrative and it's against the grain, you are now victimized as this person that is against COVID, person's against women, person's against someone who is transgender. You know, you can't have an opinion without someone slating you. What's your kind of take on this whole cancel culture?
I think you're right. I think mob culture is a terrifying thing, because, you know, if enough people get behind, you know, say for instance a journalist or someone disagrees with what you're saying, and they can get enough people behind them. For people that are in the media or sports figures, or anyone that makes money out of their image, anyone that makes money out of their name. Like I make money through my platforms and through my businesses. I don't really have any brand deals, right? But if I did have brand deals but saying that, my films have got to go on platforms. Do you know what I mean? My films have got to go on Amazon, Netflix. So I deal with brands. Everyone does if you're in the public eye. That's the problem, because if these brands can distance themselves from you, or quit contracts, or stop working with you, if the press create enough negativity. So we're all fucking at the mercy of the press. And it all depends what narrative that they want to have. And narratives can be created through viral content. Do you know what I mean? If someone decides that they want to have a pop at me about saying it goes viral enough, the media pick up on it, or another celebrity says it, then you're fucked.
Just on the note, you mentioned Andrew Tate. I was actually going to ask you, what is your opinion about him?
I don't want to talk about. I know Andrew Tate personally, and my opinion of him as a person is, I've met him. I've been away on trips with him, and I think he's all right. But you know, it's a tricky one, because my missus watches his content and has a go at me, because she you know is in tune with all of the negative stuff that the press say about him. But you know, it's a chance you could say I'm more terrified of my missus than I am the fucking press. So, but personally, as a person, you know, my own experience with Andrew is that he's very intelligent, and he certainly knew what he was doing with the viral content. You know, he's one of the most famous people in the world now, isn't he?
Yeah. And Jake Paul, you've been going into the boxing realm and learning it. He's obviously a massive YouTuber and crossed over to the boxing world. What's your opinion on Jake Paul?
I think he's a genius, mate. I think from a marketing perspective, he's a genius. He certainly knows how to sell fights. From someone that isn't a boxer, myself, that I'm not a boxer, that attempts boxing, you know, I'm the first to take the piss out of him. Do you know what I mean? Online for a laugh. You know, when he had his last fight, he fought
Anderson Silva.
And how old is Anderson? Still 50. Yeah, 50 years old. So I took the piss out of Jake Paul online, saying, you know, I've got some suggestions. You know, Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's like fucking 80 or something, and you know, Sylvester Stallone, I think he's 80. I said, or what's his name? What's that really hard geezer? I can't remember him now. He's about 90. So, you know, I'm the first to take the piss out of him online for content, for viral activity. But if I'm honest, I think that he's got ability as a boxer. I think he has got some ability as a boxer, and I know how fucking hard it is to get any type of ability to push yourself there. And I think he's a business genius. So yeah.
Two other people I'll get your opinions of, because you mentioned them before in other interviews: Ricky Gervais and Mr. Jimmy Carr.
I think Ricky Gervais is a genius. I think he's one of the best comedians on the planet. Great writer. I'd love to meet him. Yeah, I'm in awe of his joke writing and ability to deliver his stuff. I think the way that he skirts around subjects that you're not meant to talk about and makes the audience feel stupid for being offended by them is fucking pure genius. It's an ability I lack sorely. I wish that I had his intelligence to be able to tell the audience that they'd be stupid if they're offended by what he's going to say next. That's very offensive, and get people to laugh at themselves for being offended by it is pure genius. I think he's a genius. Jimmy Carr, great joke writer, amazing talent. I've read his book, The Naked Jape, and a lot of his other work, and I think one of the best writers on the planet. So yeah, I think they're good comedians.
And why do you think they can get away with such out there comedy and content, whereas someone like yourself is going to get ridiculed for the same joke?
They're just more intelligent, mate. They can write better and deliver it better. That's just the honest truth. I think you can get away with anything if you're intelligent in the way you deliver it, and they're just on a different level that I aspire to be. That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah. You mentioned about films and acting and stuff, which I feel like this is another chapter, maybe a podcast part 2 at some point. But I know you were just in a film with Terry Stone, who's been on my podcast twice.
Oh yeah.
And I think was Josh Myers in it as well?
Josh was, yeah. He's a good friend of mine, Josh, yeah.
And I forgot his name now. He's not been on my podcast. Craig
Fairboss?
That's it.
No, he's not in it. No,
he's not in it.
No, you're thinking of Rise of the Foot Soldier.
Yeah. So, okay, your acting career then, is this basically a new line you're going to be going down, or?
I think I've always done acting. Acting was my first love, and now I'm into film producing. I've learned how to raise finance. That film that you're talking about, and the film that we've currently got out at the moment, The Last Heist, that was a West End play that I got cast in. So I got cast in the play and I acted in the play. It was a four-hander, 4 of us on stage for like an hour and a half, proper acting. We done that, and after I'd done that, I said to the writer, I want to turn this into a film. So I raised the money myself. He adapted the script to a screenplay. We cast it, got Terry on to produce it, and now it's flying. And now I'm working on other scripts, other films, and I've just got the ability with my platform to blow these projects up, and to, no one's casting me and stuff. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, so I got bored of auditioning and trying to go through agents and stuff like that. So I'm just going to make my own films, cast myself, create my own film career.
All right, perfect stuff. I know you need to shoot off soon.
What time is it? Yeah.
So it's coming up to 15:15. I'm going to ask you one more question. So when I first started my own business when I was in my early 20s, I came up with a mantra because I was running salespeople, and predominantly most of those salespeople were men, alpha type men, who were a bit laddish, drinking, drugs, everything else. But to keep them positive and on the right frame of mind, I came up with this quote which goes like this: be happy, never content. If I were to ask Dapper Laughs, what does be happy, never content mean to you?
Be happy, never content. Be happy, never content. That's great. You know what I mean? Because on one hand, you're saying, don't be content with what you've got, but be happy with what you've got. Do you know what I mean? So be happy, never content. Just be happy with what life throws at you. I think that means.
Yeah.
What do you think it means?
Be happy for me is there's no such thing as being happy all the time, but even in your darkest days there's a silver lining. Even the worst thing that happens to you, you can always find positivity off the back end of it, which is normally in the form of a lesson. And never content doesn't mean being greedy. It just means if you're this type of fitness, why can't you be a stage better? If you're this type of wealth, why can't you be a stage better? If you've got this relationship with your kids or your wife, why can't it be a little bit step better? Just be pushing for more, but in the right way. Yeah. That's my interpretation of it.
I like that, mate. Thank you. I'll take that with me.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
That's been great.
And if everyone enjoyed this content, please subscribe, share it, and do all the good stuff. And remember, be happy, never content. And thank you very much for your time, mate.
Thanks.
God bless.